Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown, running over the MLB games scheduled for Friday, May 3rd, 2024. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my daily rundown best bet in the MLB, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Friday's loaded card in Major League Baseball. First up, we see an afternoon game at Wrigley Field between the Milwaukee Brewers and the Chicago Cubs. Joe Ross and Hayden Wesneski are your starters. Now, I do think that the Cubs have the slightly better starting pitching option in Wesneski, but he has a very small sample size this season, only 10 1/3 innings, 6 strikeouts. I'd like to see him miss some more bats, and I do expect some regression going forward. I also don't think he's going to pitch too deep into this ball game, and I don't love this Cubs bullpen. I do think the Brewers have the bullpen advantage in this series. And, Joe Ross, he's been inconsistent this year. His last game, we know 6 earned runs, not going to get it done. But before that, he had 5 1/3 of 1-run baseball. So we know he's got some, nice strikeout stuff. He's got about a strikeout per inning this season. He's only given up 2 home runs. So really, when he's missing outside the zone. He's walking a lot of batters. But honestly, his control in terms of the walks per 9 has been better than I expected going into the season. And like I said, I think if he does, he's been solid on the road. He's got a sub-3 ERA away from home. If he can give the Brewers 5, maybe 6, solid innings, decent innings, 4 earned runs or less, I think the Brewers bullpen will be able to shut the game down in the late innings. Especially, the Brewers have the advantage of having the day off and getting that bullpen rested on Thursday, while the Cubs had to play that game against the New York Mets in Citi Field in the afternoon. So I'm going to go with the Milwaukee Brewers in this game on the money line. Next up, we see the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Cincinnati Reds. No official starter for Baltimore. Hunter Green should be going for Cincinnati. In the case of the Orioles, I heard that John Means might be ready to come up for the weekend series, make his season debut either this game Friday or Saturday. And, if he is the starter here, wouldn't love this spot for him. He struggled quite a bit in the rehab starts in the minor leagues. Gave up right around an earned run per inning. His ERA was just below 9, and he gave up a lot of sharp contact, a lot of home runs. So I worry about that against a very powerful lineup in the Cincinnati Reds at a hitter-friendly ballpark like Great American. And even if he's not the starter, I think Hunter Green, while he hasn't been great at home this season, I still think he's going to be the better option to start this game. And I like this Reds lineup, especially at Great American. Green's got great strikeout stuff. He's got 42 Ks in 34 2/3 innings, and he's only given up 2 home runs this year. So that was a big problem, especially his rookie year. Gave up a lot of sharp contact, a lot of home runs. That was the way to beat Green, was via the walk and the home run ball. But he's given up 2 walks or fewer in 4 of his last 5 starts. The strikeout stuff is still there, and he hasn't given up a home run in 4 of his last 5 starts. So I'm going to go with Hunter Green and the Cincinnati Reds in this game on the money line. Next up, we see the Colorado Rockies taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Cal Quantrill and Martin Perez are your starters. Now, these are 2 starters that I rarely back, but I honestly like the under in this game, believe it or not, because I think both of these starters benefit from their matchups here. I think, when you look at the Pittsburgh Pirates, a team that got off to such a good start offensively and overall to start the season, they're struggling now quite a bit against righties. They got some of the worst numbers in baseball. OPS, isolated power against righties this year. We saw the Oakland A's starting rotation in that series against the Buccos really pitch well. I mean, guys like Boyle, Stripling put together really strong outings. So Quantrill, like I said, not somebody I back often, and he's coming off a rough start, but that was against the Astros, a much tougher lineup. And actually, before that game against Houston, Quantrill put together 3 straight quality starts over playoff teams or teams at above 500 records last year in the Diamondbacks, Phillies, and Mariners. And I think, with the Pirates, this is a team that hits the ball on the ground quite often, one of the higher ground ball percentages in baseball. That benefits a pitch-to-contact guy like Cal Quantrill, who's not going to earn a lot of strikeouts, but he looks to limit the sharp contact and keep the ball on the ground, keep the ball in the yard when he pitches. So I think he pitches well, but Martin Perez, same thing. The Rockies, their numbers against lefties overall this season aren't too shabby, but when you look at their numbers on the road, which we find them in this game, some of the worst in baseball. High strikeout rate, low OPS. So Martin Perez, another ground ball specialist, facing another team in the Colorado Rockies who hits the ball on the ground quite often, one of the higher ground ball percentages. So I think both pitch-to-contact guys pitch to contact here. I think they have a low-scoring game, at least in the first 5 innings. Don't love either of the bullpens, so just give me the under in the first 5. Next up, we see the San Francisco Giants taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. Jordan Hicks and Aaron Nola are your starters. Jordan Hicks is off to a great start to the season, but with how high Aaron Nola's been since a really rough season opener, but after that game, he's had 5 straight Phillies wins. The Phillies have won all 5 of the rest of the games. They've covered the run line in 3 of those 5 games. He's pitching deep into ball games. 7 in the third innings or more in the last 3 starts with a ton of strikeouts to go with it. His control's been there. The walks, only 3 walks combined in the last 3 games. Now, if San Francisco does find some offensive success in this game, it's probably going to be on the home run ball. Nola does give up about a home run per game, but other than that, I think it'll be a really solid outing for Nola yet again. And then when you look at Jordan Hicks, like I said, pitching really well, but the strength of schedule is something to look at. I mean, he's faced a lot of weak lineups, the Pirates, the Diamondbacks, the Marlins. Those are 3 of the bottom 10 teams at OPS against righties this year. Even before that, the Nationals and the Padres, Jordan Hicks has only faced 1 lineup in the top 15, 2 of them, Padres and Nationals, in the top 15 in team OPS against righties. And even still, the Phillies are better there, and they're really improving as the season goes along. So I think this is a tough matchup here for Hicks, and I'm going to go with the Phillies on the run line in this one. Next up, we see the New York Mets taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. We're going to see Jose Quintana and Aaron Savale as the starters. The Tampa Bay Rays offense has been abysmal recently. I mean, I know there's the injuries to deal with in the lineup right now, but I mean, this team against righties, against lefties, it's tough to have a lot of faith in their game offensively. And when you add in one of the worst bullpens in baseball and a starting pitcher here, and Savale's got an ERA above 5, he's given up 11 earned runs his last 2 starts. There's no way I can go with the Rays in this game, even though we do expect them to turn it around at some point. I mean, Jose Quintana's coming off an 8-inning, 1-run performance. The Rays are 26 in team OPS against lefties, dead last in isolated power, second highest strikeout rate at 27.7%, one of the lowest walk rates. And I think Quintana pitches well. I think Savale struggles yet again. I got to go with the New York Mets in this one on the money line. Next up is the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Washington Nationals. This is your Apple TV game at 6:45 Eastern. Yusei Kikuchi for Toronto. No official starter for the Nationals, but I am seeing Patrick Corbin listed on ESPN. If he is a starter, I don't love the Nationals' chances, even though we've backed the Nationals plenty of times this year, and they've been one of the more profitable teams in baseball. I still think, Corbin facing a Blue Jays team that crushes lefties. Corbin not in great form. Corbin's ERA above 8 at home this season. Just not great numbers, not great. I just don't think it sets up well for the Nationals pitching staff, at least early in this game. I think the Blue Jays bullpen, while I think it'll improve as the season goes along, still not the sharpest right now. So I'm just going to take the Blue Jays in the first 5 innings and lay a half a run. I think they'll have the lead. I think their offense starts, quickly. But if this is a close game late, which it could be, if the Nationals rally, we've seen that before. I mean, they started the game 7-0 before and found a W. If it's a close game late, the Nationals bullpen's been strong, so I wouldn't necessarily rule them out. Maybe a live bet, but I'm going to go with the Blue Jays in the first 5 innings. Next up, we see the Detroit Tigers taking on the New York Yankees. Marcus Stroman and Reese Olson are your starters. Marcus Stroman, I don't love his current form. I mean, he's given up at least 1 home run in each of his last 4 games. For somebody that's more of a pitch-to-contact ground ball specialist, not what you want to see. He also had 5 walks in that last game against the Brewers. I know it was enough for a big blowout win. The Yankees' bats against righties have been really strong, but they've also been a bit inconsistent, and we saw him struggle quite a bit in that Orioles series. So, for me, with Reese Olson pitching as well as he has, I know the Tigers have not really backed him up in the run support department, or the bullpen hasn't backed him up, but the Tigers are still well above 500 on the road this year. Reese Olson's pitching well. The Tigers are improving against righties. They have a solid bullpen. To me, the value is definitely with the Tigers in this game. As much as the Yankees have played great to start the season, I got to go with the Tigers in this one on the money line. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Cleveland Guardians. Jose Soriano and Tanner Bybee are your starters. I'm not giving up on Jose Soriano. I know the numbers on paper look pretty rough. 0-4 with that 4.76 ERA. He was only able to go through an inning and 2/3 in that last game against the Twins, but I think he was rather unlucky in that one. His control was off early, but it was also a game where the sun was right in his eyes, and it sounds silly, but it looked like he could not see the plate in that game. He struggled. I mean, Chris Paddock also struggled early in that start against the Angels, so to me, I think Soriano bounces back. I really like what I saw from him in that game against the Cincinnati Reds. He was earning strikeouts, keeping the ball on the ground. He gave up no earned runs in that game. His defense didn't help him out, but it was a really strong, promising start from him. I think he pitched well against a Guardians team and also hits the ball on the ground quite often, high ground ball percentage. They don't strike out very often, but I think Soriano limits the sharp contact, keeps the ball on the ground. He'll be able to pitch well. He's got to limit the walks, got to watch the control, but I think he gives the Angels 5 innings, maybe 6 innings of solid work. On the other side, Tanner Bybee, he has been red hot. He's been one of the more profitable starting pitchers in baseball. You look at that ERA 3.45, it was much steeper at the beginning of the season. His last 3 games now, 3 earned runs or fewer, all wins for the Guardians. And they played some tough teams. They played at Fenway Park, at the Truist Park against the Braves. So he's racking up the strikeouts with 17 Ks his last 12 and 2/3 innings. He's facing an Angels lineup that was already struggling with Mike Trout, and now without Mike Trout, it's really tough to get there with him. So I'm going to go with the under here in the Angels-Guardians matchup. Next up, we see the Texas Rangers taking on the Kansas City Royals. Michael Lorenzen and Brady Singer are your starters. Yeah, I do have some concerns with Brady Singer's game. I expect some regression going forward. I don't love the fact that his control's been off, missing both inside and outside the zone, walking batters at least 3 in his last 3 games, and giving up, at least 1 home run in 4 of his last 5. But he's got some pretty good strikeout stuff. He does pitch a lot better at Kauffman Stadium. And Lorenzen, he gave up 5 earned runs his last game. The Royals are a very solid lineup against right-handed pitching. These are 2 talented offenses. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game and a high-scoring series, especially at Kauffman. So I'll lean towards the over. But I'm going to go with the Kansas City Royals, the home team in this one. They've been much better themselves at home this year with a 12-5 overall record. The Rangers just a little bit above 500 on the road. So give me the Kansas City Royals on the money line. Next up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the Minnesota Twins. Chris Paddock for Minnesota, no official starter for the Bo Sox. The Minnesota Twins playing great baseball right now. They're on a 10-game win streak going into this game, but we got to take a look at the teams that they've beaten along the way. They swept the 4-game series against the Chicago White Sox, swept the Angels in Los Angeles, and then swept the White Sox again in that 3-game series before the weekend. So, yeah, they've won 10 straight, and any win in the major leagues is a win, but those are some of the worst teams in baseball, and now you're facing a Red Sox team. It's been actually a lot better than a lot of people expected, especially when you take into account that the injuries that they've had to start the year, both in the lineup and the pitching staff. And we don't know the official starter here for the Boston Red Sox, but they have one of the best team ERAs in the league. Their bullpen's been really solid. It's been a surprise. And Chris Paddock, he's even his last game, 4 earned runs against the Angels. He's given up 4 or more earned runs in 2 of his last 3 starts. He had a really good outing against the Chicago White Sox, but that's the White Sox, one of the worst lineups in baseball. I think here against the Red Sox, he struggles a bit. And while he's been a lot better at target field, I still think the Red Sox can find a few runs on him and win this game. So I'm going to go with the Boston Red Sox in this one on the money line. Next up, we see the Seattle Mariners taking on the Houston Astros. George Kirby and Ronel Blanco are your starters. Now, we know it's been a disastrous year for the Astros pitching staff, and Ronel Blanco has been the exception. He's been really solid. We know the no-hitter, 3-0, 1.65 ERA, but I don't think it's going to be enough in a game like this against George Kirby, who's also red hot on the other side. He's got his last 2 games, 12 innings, no earned runs, 19 strikeouts. He's missing a ton of bats. His control's been sharp. He's only had 2 walks his last 5 games combined. So even though the Astros lineup is solid, the Mariners lineup is also improving, and there's a huge advantage in the bullpen for the Mariners this year. The better expected numbers by a good margin, but the ERAs are where the big difference is. 4.77, 2.51 for Seattle. So I got to go with the Seattle Mariners in this game on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Chicago White Sox taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. We'll see Brad Keller and Sonny Gray as your starters. Brad Keller pitched in his season debut. It was an inning and 2/3 out of the bullpen against the Twins. It was an inning and 2/3 a shutout ball with 1 strikeout, but 2 walks to go with it. And the walks have been an issue for Keller in his career at the major league level. I don't love this spot for him. I don't think he's a great option in this White Sox rotation, and especially opposite of Sonny Gray, who's been really strong this year. Even though the Cardinals have been a disappointing team, I still think they win this game and cover the run line at home. Not a great price, obviously, and in this one, it's a lopsided pitching matchup, lopsided matchup in general. But I have to lean towards St. Louis and lay the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Miami Marlins taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Ryan Weathers and J.P. Sears are your starters. 2 starting pitchers that struggled quite a bit in their last starts. 2 lefties, by the way, in this one. But the difference is the Oakland A's are number 2 in baseball in isolated power against lefties. They've been actually pretty solid against southpaws, while the Marlins near the bottom of the league in OPS, isolated power, WRC+, you name it, against lefties. And, Sears gave up those 7 earned runs and 3 homers against the Orioles, but that's an Orioles team that's in the top 3 in OPS and ISO against lefties this year. So it was a really tough matchup on the road. You return home, face a weak lineup. You got the much better bullpen. I like the Athletics in this game on the money line. Next up is the San Diego Padres taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're going to see Slade Cecconi and Dylan Cease as your starters. Dylan Cease, his worst start of the year in that last game against the Phillies by far. 6 innings, 5 earned runs, and a home run with 3 walks to go with it. Don't love to see that, especially, Arizona, while their numbers against righties aren't great, they also have a very low BABIP, so I think they've been one of the more unlucky teams to start the season offensively. They still have a very low strikeout rate, and I think they provide a pretty tough matchup for Dylan Cease, honestly, overall. And Slade Cecconi, it's a small sample size, but he's pitching really well for the Diamondbacks to start the year. The Padres lineup has been very inconsistent. They've had their, some great moments. They've also had a few games where they've just put together, a bunch of nothing. So it's tough to tell what you're going to get from this San Diego offense. But I'm going to lean towards the Diamondbacks, especially at home here, where we know they play their better baseball. Give them Diamondbacks on the money line. Next up, we see the Atlanta Braves taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers, the final game for the Friday card in Major League Baseball. And we're going to see Charlie Morton and Gavin Stone as your projected starters. And Gavin Stone, I think, is still a lot better than his current ERA. We saw that in the last game. 7 innings, only 1 run against the Blue Jays in a 12-2 blowout win. That's another thing. The Dodgers lineup's been red hot, and you're facing a starter in Charlie Morton that I'd much rather back when he's pitching at home. His numbers the last couple of years and so far this year have been a lot better at Truist Park than on the road. So don't love the matchup here for Charlie Morton. I think Gavin Stone pitches well. I mean, it's a tough matchup. Both of these, these are top 2 lineups in baseball against right-handed pitching, so should be a fun series to watch. But in this first game, I'm going to go with the Dodgers on the money line. And that's it. Those are the games for Friday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Romanelli. Good luck.